We are here today welcoming Elizabeth Rookledge and Han Nguyen for a conversation as part of the 2021 Medium Festival of Photography. Each of us is broadcasting to you from San Diego, which is the ancestral home of the Kumeyaay people. I want to acknowledge that we are joining you from unceded land of the Kumeyaay people who still call this region home today. And I want to thank them for sharing this land with us.
Great, thank you so much, Scott. And I'm really excited to be here, and especially to be here sort of under the name of HereIn. For everybody who is watching, Scott wrote a beautiful text about Han's work for HereIn that we published last year. So I highly recommend going to HereInJournal.org and looking that up and reading it. So I think that we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen here, if I can get it to work. Okay. So Han, I have my long list of questions for you here. Why don't we start with, so you were born in Vietnam, and as Scott said, you emigrated to the US in 1975. Were you doing photography at all before you came here?
No, the answer is no, but I do have, but we do have a lot of like magazine, movie and all that kind of stuff that we familiar with. So that I'm really familiar with photography, especially the war photography and some fashion and all that. But other than that, I never touched the camera or have any camera at home at all. But when I get to college, I did study journalism. So with the hope that I don't have to carry a gun. That's I think that's the main purpose, I believe. But no, the answer is no. I do have some friend who got a dog room and he showed me around, but I don't believe I have any interest to be a photographer at the time.
So you were surrounded by images, but it wasn't something that you were practicing on your own.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm more interested in painting and writing and all that. My family was like that, into that. We've been drawing a little bit as the kid, but other than that, no. Photography is not what we plan to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's interesting to know that you studied written journalism, you know, and that you were seeing all of these journalistic images. And then when you started making photography, like as we'll see, kind of your practice develops, you know, it moves away from journalistic images, which one might think, given your background, that you would have sort of swung towards that kind of work, but actually you moved, I'll go ahead to an image here, you moved towards something very different. So something that Scott said that is just, to me, sticks out about your work, sort of first and foremost, is that you have this wide kind of organic range of types of processes that you're working with, and then also subjects that you're working with. And so when you came here and started doing photography yourself, what was it that first attracted you to making photographs, and what sorts of things were you making when you first picked up the camera?
Well, when I first picked up the camera, I actually don't know what to do with it, actually. But for a while, because of my brother who who study fashion. So I thought that maybe I'm not maybe, but I interest in doing fashion and commercial. And when I study at City College, they teach a little bit of, technique and all that. So what they do teach me is the how to use the camera, all type of camera, which is very valuable afterward. And after a while, I work for the photo lab, try to build a commercial portfolio. But then uh, San Diego, we don't have much of the fashion scene or that kind of stuff. So that's how I start doing this, fine art, just uh, to keep up with whatever that I interested on.
Hmm. Well, I think so. Here we have an image from your Stonehenge series, which I believe on your website is the earliest work that you have included on there, which I highly recommend everybody go to Han's website, and you'll see the full range of work that we're not able to cover today. But Han, this Stonehenge series, to me, this was quite early in your career, and you're coming up with this very distinctive original set of images that's combining a number of photographic traditions. I mean, I even see, the influence perhaps of fashion photography here, but then also landscape photography. So can you talk a little bit about this series and how you, I guess I can go back to that first one, and how you came to be working with this subject matter and in this style?
Well, actually, this is probably the very first group of photograph, the series that I ever done. I mean, seriously about fine art photography. Um, I remember before this group, I do go out, do street photography. But because I only have like 2 days a week, I work during the week. I mean, the weekday. So I only have 2 weekend to do photography, and I kind of disappoint because every time I shoot a couple rows, I couldn't get anything good out of it. So I started seeing some stone rocks in the riverbed. So I picked them home. I didn't know that it's illegal though at the time, and that's how I come up with this. And this one very much inspired by Irving Penn. The I thought that if one photographer that I would pick to start, well, for me, I picked Irving Penn. So it's similar style, but I just do a little bit, a little twist here and there, and that's what this yeah, that's what this series about all about.
Mhm. Well, and so then you go from this image or these images that are influenced by fashion photography and still life and landscape, and then we come to these next ones, which to me are such surprising images, where am I correct in that you are making these small sculptures?
Yes, correct. This is by chance. Uh, I like Brancusi sculpture before. I see his stuff before on magazine and all that kind, but I never seen his photograph. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, maybe I can try sculpting. I do like sculpting, but I never tried before. So I kind of bought a pack of clay and then play around with it. This is on fire, so they break very easily and very small. And I just play around and somehow it's worked. I mean, I just set up the whole thing and photograph them. This is the one that inspired me, the bird.
Mhm.
Uh, that's how the series come together. Um, this is very simple setup. I mean, it's just one lighting, and I build the set and just feel free to photograph. It's all black and white, and I sepia toned it.
Okay. I mean, you describe your process as quite straightforward, but I think that these images, like I said, have so much surprise and to me feel very unexpected. And I think as I look at the range of your work, I somewhat feel that way every single time I move from series to series. And you, well, okay, so one question that I have is, I think we can, oh, here's another one. So this one is from 2017. These are from 1992. And so another remarkable thing about your practice is that you will continue series over many, many years, sometimes over decades. And I think very few artists are able to kind of sustain the interest or the drive to develop something over such a long period of time. And so I'm just interested, in within your kind of artistic mindset, how does that work when you are doing something or returning to something over and over again?
Um, the the thing is, I inspired by looking at other artists' work, and one of my favorite painter is Philip Guston, and I try to do some Guston thing on this series. I haven't done this series yet, but and I tried to do that, and I couldn't. I used, that plenty of hole there. I to try to have cigarette or cigar or something stuck in there, but it didn't work. So I just have this long leg and put it there, and it turned out it's similar to that spider of like Louis Bourgeois. So, but this one, I didn't set this up actually. I just put it there to see what's happening. And this is the only picture that I shot with with it. And the other one, so around it I just wait for them to dry. So to start it. But it turned out this one, the good one.
Mhm. Well, and it's fascinating to me that you're able to kind of slide between different photographic processes, but you're also able to slide around and touch different sort of aesthetic strategies. You have some photographs that are very spare, very elegant, and then this one to me, strikes me as having this very sort of cartoonish spirit and has a certain element of humor in it.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is one of your series that the kind of eloquence of it is quite remarkable. So you had told me that you think this is the series that you're best known for. So can you tell us about how this project started?
Um, I never, well, this one also is something that I come up very quickly. Uh, I just bought this pinhole camera. It's 4x5 camera, but it's a pinhole. So originally, I tried to hire a model to do it for me. I mean, to model for me. But then I thought, well, I don't have much of studio space, so I do it myself. So this is it, pretty much a self-portrait, and from the very first one, I know that I don't want to show my face. So that's how I want to express myself with my hand, with legs and all that, just to express the feeling of one person, feeling at certain time, certain thing. And sometimes some of the image in this series I also based on dance. And I sometimes I just like watch TV and I saw something interesting, so I will do that, try that. And the pinhole is kind of uh, is the, basically is a fixed lens, so I just play in front of the camera. That's about it. And it's a long exposure actually. It's 30 seconds to a minute. It depends on uh, the day, the light, that sort of thing.
Mhm. So
So
you said that you are interested in dance. Are you a dancer?
no, not at all. I don't know how to dance,
Well,
but
these photographs would make me think that you were an excellent dancer because they really are so expressive, and yeah, they're just beautiful.
I I one thing I'm flexible, but I'm not. I'm no way I can be a dancer. I don't know anything about dancing, but I do interest in dance for sure. I mean, I
Mhm.
watch it all the time.
Well, but before the rest of the folks joined us for this Zoom session, you and I were talking about that we both feel quite uncomfortable having our faces on the Zoom screen. And you were telling me about your own history or lack thereof with self-portraiture in terms of photographs from throughout your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Uh, I don't know. In my family, for some reason, we never take any picture of each other or anything like that. Uh, until we came here, we have friends that in the Camp Pendleton, and we took some picture because we kind of, well, immigrants and refugee live in the same area, and that's when we took some picture. But in my family, for some reason, maybe my older sister is, she like taking picture, but beyond that, none of us really want to take any picture of just ourselves or something like that. Kind of strange though, but I do regret it
Yeah.
because right now I don't have any picture of me when I was young. Maybe I got a picture for the um, for college. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I guess in a couple of slides, we'll come to a series that you did that had to do with your time in Vietnam. So we'll get to that shortly. But first, we have this series of collages that you have been working on for quite a while. Can you tell us about your process with these?
This um, this is also inspired by another painter, uh, and that's Francis Bacon. And I just I know that his background was always have a curve, so that's how I shoot it with the with the with with half in mind to play around with. And I don't know the process. I never done collage before, and this probably one of the first series that I did. And um, I use different kind of tone for the background. I toned with tea just to give them a little bit dimension, uh, and I use watercolor also. This particular one, I use watercolor to paint all the silver print. Uh, I I do use a lot of like I like to break the tradition of photography a little bit. Let's put it that way. I want to, because photography basically is just a flat piece of paper with image on it. So I want to build up a little bit something. I I like it that way. I'm not sure why that I did it, but that's that's how I come up with sometime.
Mhm. And so you've done the collages over a long period of time. And, when you're talking about all of these art historical references, from photography to painting to sculpture, do you have any kind of like file of images, reference images that you keep? Or is it all just in your head?
It's all in my head. I have an idea, and then when I start doing it, I just play around with that idea, and sometimes it works, sometimes don't. But most of the time is, I achieve whatever that I feel that I need to get it done. Uh, I mean, the overall series. I got a, I don't know if it's a problem or not, but my, I always want the whole series to be cohesive visually. So each one, the setup is almost the same, and the technique is almost the same. Just a little bit change here and there. But other than that, I don't do anything different actually. Uh, this particular one, the background, there are three pieces in there. The background and type C print on top. And this is probably later.
Yeah, we don't have
That's
the
the other
date
one.
there, but this is a later one in the series, more recent.
Yeah.
Mhm. So yeah, this is to me one of the most fascinating series that you've done. And you had told me that this was, so before you had left Vietnam, you were seeing all of these images that included journalistic photos and journalistic photos of the war. And so you had told me that you kind of wanted to escape that and escape that type of work and those types of images, but that this is the one series you've done that addresses that time in your life and that experience. So can you tell us how this project started?
Well, like you say that I never want to touch the the subject matter, but in 2005, I believe that's what the series started. A friend of us, well, actually, I know him, but and his name also, his last name is also Nguyen, just like mine. So he sent me an email, asked me because of anniversary 30 years that we left Vietnam, and he put a group of artists with the last name Nguyen. So, so he asked me to contribute with one image. So this is the one that I come up with. Also shoot with pinhole, very straightforward. And then I would scratch the year from 1975 to 2005. That basically 30 years. And after that, I sort of like, maybe I should continue this one because each year April 30th coming up, and those days is always in my head. So that's how every year I will try to at least make one picture to for that anniversary. I don't think that anniversary is the right word, but that I did it like every year, every April 30th, or close to that time. I used this image. The reason because the Polaroid, they discontinue this type of film. So I have no choice but keep using the same image and then add some elements here, elements there, that sort of thing. So I got quite a bit of this. Haven't made print yet, but I make, just the first one.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're moving and haunting, and you certainly can see, how this is a development of your work over time, but they do certainly stand out. And so then we come to this image, there are this series of images, Dusk, that are also have this sort of haunting spirit. What was your process for these?
This is actually is black and white. I shoot with black and white film, and it just happened that I saw a couple of trees that stand side by side, and every winter they are, all the leaves falling down, so they expose all kind of stuff, and so I just shoot it up and take it home. Sometime I do it soft focus, not soft focus, but out of focus, and just sandwich them together. And I do the color in Photoshop, that sort of thing. This one is half traditional and half Photoshop.
Yeah, so you're doing everything from using watercolor, from staining with tea, to cutting things out, to using Photoshop. Do you have, is there a particular process and way of working that for you is the most exciting, or do they kind of all feel on par with each other?
No, when I have an idea, I like to find a way how to fit with that particular idea. The process, should I do with large format camera, black and white or color, or that sort of thing? I try to figure it out that first, and then I will start doing it. But no, my work is, all I want is just to make it look good. That's all. That's all it is. I'm very like, first thing first. I like to photograph something that have, in my mind, and then try to find a way to achieve that. That's the way I work. I don't. I'm not like pick and choose what type of process.
Mm-hmm. So this series, you and I got to work together with this. I created an exhibition at the San Diego Art Institute a few years ago that was called High Key Color in Southern California. And so I got to go to your studio and look through all of your work, and this is the series that we decided to put in that show. And am I right that these are all plants from our area?
Well, actually, it's from my yard. I mean, I do yard work and I see something interesting. I will keep it and I will clean it up and then I, I do, I mean, I was exposed to this, actually that would indoor. I was exposed at the photogram and this particular one, every group of the plant on this one is from my backyard and front yard actually. So everything is surrounding me. My subject matter is basically around me.
Mhm.
Uh, this one is the new one. I used dye on that. I toned with red dye. You know that clothing dye.
Yeah, that you used to make tie-dye shirts.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, the colors in these are really remarkable. And then this series, to me, Flow, these images feel just sort of miraculous. How do you get these?
Well, this is another series that my idea is by observation. I work a lot in my dark room, and with the stop bath, they have kind of yellowish, and every time uh, I move the tray, they have ripples and waves back and forth. So I thought, oh wow, this is really pretty. I have to find way to to capture it, and that's the idea. Is by uh, observation. I do a lot of that. Uh, I mean, the idea is came from the tray, moving tray, the chemical. But on this case, I use the watercolor and mix with water, and then just basically just move the tray back and forth until I see something interesting and I snap the picture. This is not a photograph, but it's photograph. I mean, photograph shot from the top, right on the top.
And so if you were to print these, what size would you print them at?
This one is 20 by 24, I believe. But that, yeah, this show at Joseph Bellow Gallery a while back, um, most of it is 20 by 24.
Because I think for me, looking at this series, especially, even just on my computer screen, which is obviously not the ideal way to look at them, these feel like they completely envelop my body. I think that they're so evocative in terms of physical sensation that I would love to see them in person.
Yeah, this is the type C, yeah. And it's much more darker and very deep color on it.
Mhm. Well, I think that is it for our slideshow. Shall we open it up to questions?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you both. I'll start with that, and I will invite and encourage everybody to turn on your video, particularly if you would like to ask a question for either Han or Elizabeth.
Well, I'll start off
Please do.
asking if you prefer the dark room or digital.
I prefer dark room, but I back and forth. I get older now, so I mean, dark room is getting tough to stand around and process all the black and white. But I go back and forth. I'm not prefer anything. I want to, if I have to achieve in black and white, fiber-based, or digital, I just go for it. I don't, uh, I, I don't know. I just don't pick and choose, actually.
You know, Han, I learned a lot about your work listening to the conversation. And I mention that because I've been a fan of your work since I first saw it in the 1990s. And I've had the privilege of having many conversations with you. I've seen many of your exhibitions. I've been to your studio. So I've gone a little deeper than the average person. But I think one of the things that really stands out to me in listening to the conversation is that I believe most of your work is made in your house or in your backyard.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes. Well, occasionally I did go out though. Nearby here, about a mile, we have a reserve. The wood is really nice. And I did go out to a Museum of Man and, you know, that series. But yeah, that's the farthest I go.
Well,
I
it's
have to admit,
a compliment. Because I'm reminded of the Minor White quote about that a fully sensitized photographer could spend their entire lives photographing a single block and never finish the job. And I think that's, you're kind of the living in.
yeah, some of the rock
much.
portrait, that's basically, I dig it, is from my yard, actually. They're big rock.
Yeah.
Basically, I just took the portrait of it. Most of my image is photography. Basically, is portraiture anyway. To me.
Sure. We welcome questions, and guests are welcome to turn on your video or to unmute yourself if you have a question. And if you don't have a barking dog, you never know. The pleasures of Zoom.
I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Han, for your work. It's beautiful and so I don't know, poetic, such poetic simplicity. I really, really admire it. And I have a question regarding the series Remember Me. It seems to be one of the few series that you use figurative, like people in your portraits, but they're like pixeled. Could you speak about it and about the technique that you used in that series?
Okay, that's very good question, because that series, I create the image by completely with computer, with Photoshop. I will pick most of that. Remember Me is from the portrait of kid that got killed in Cambodia. So I just crop them very, very small with very low rays. And then I figured out how to transfer that low rays to the bigger. I build up piece by piece, pixel by pixel, actually, thousand and thousand pixel. The reason, because out of curiosity, before I know how to do Photoshop, I'm a printer, and in my shop we hire a new guy who do Photoshop. So he explained to me pixel is different from grain. So I asked him, because I was curious, I asked him what if I can create a picture out of nothing. So he said, yes, you can, because it's square, you can build it up, but it's going to take you forever. So it took me a few years to figure out how to do it, actually. The final is really sharp. You can, I mean, every square is very sharp and very big. It's very big file. So the process that I think nobody had done before. I don't think no one will spend like a week to build one image or something like that. I spent like 2 years to do a lot of that on that group.
Well, I just find it even more beautiful because I don't know the particular story of this boy, but it seems that you reconstructed his image in a way like of a person that is no longer here. Or does it have something to do with that?
Oh, yes, that's for sure. I mean, that's what the title is, Remember Me. So that's what I try to create, a very blurry image of the kid. And most of that series, Remember Me, is about kid. And some of that, some of it about Vietnam War, but it's very blurry actually. So yeah, the title is about that they will look at us. Well, I mean, the image will look back at us and ask the question that remember me, that sort of thing.
Sure, and how blurry memory becomes. All right, thank you so much, Han.
Oh, thank you so much for asking.
Actually, Han, I'll jump in here. That was such a good question, and I'm glad that you brought us back to that series, which is on your website. But it seems to me that memory is kind of an overarching theme in your work, which brings to mind the way that most of us non-photographers, normal people out in the world, use photographs as a way to record things so that they stay in our memories. And so I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about, about how that manifests in your work, even when it's not necessarily as explicit a theme as in Remember Me.
How what?
So how memory, the idea of memory and the role that images play in helping us remember, kind of how is that present in your practice?
It's hard to say, because memory, to be honest, I look at those images and I remember the feeling of by reading the story, that the backstory, that those people with number in that chest, and they call the number and that sort of thing to execute them, or that sort of. So, and I remember the war in Vietnam, which I rarely touch because I'm not too good at it. I mean, I just more. I want to be more personal rather than express my own feeling, rather than have political or comment to the by making image, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment, if I may. Thank you, Han. Your work is really, quite poignant and emotional and very personal, I would say. I wrote in the chat that your work reminds me of the way Christian Boltanski uses a portrait to conjure remembrance, especially regarding persecution of a people. And so he also does it in such a poignant way that it's about memory and loss and, the disappearance of the image, right? The disappearance, the forgetting, which I think is part of your remembrance series. And, it makes us think about the role of the portrait in creating sort of an archive, an archive of the people that were lost and remembering them, and the role that the portrait plays in that. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Yeah, thank you.
There's also a comment in the chat from Philip Schultz-Ritterman about the physicality of your prints, how exquisite and intimate they are as objects, and I want to second that, because in seeing some of your work online, such as the collages, I sort of had an assumption in my mind about the physical scale of them. And then when I saw them for the first time at Joseph Bellows Gallery in La Jolla, I was really taken with how small they were. And as Philip says, how delicate they are as objects. And yeah, it's something we don't get on the computer screen. Sorry. Is that sense of scale, that they're almost like daguerreotypes. I mean, they're these tiny, tiny little images, and all of the cutting and the figuring that's in the original photographs, and then the physical collaging and the layering of these to sort of, you talked about wanting to break free from the photograph as a two-dimensional object. That really comes into play, because they exist at such a size that really only one person can see them at one time, without being crowded very close to the frame. But it is something that's really a delight when we get to see them in person.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I start out, I mean, the very first collage that I attempt to do is basically I call it negative collage, because I do it in negative. I have a whole bunch of negative, and I cut the negative out and retape them. I rephotograph certain things, like other people work, like Picasso and all that. I don't have that in my website. And then I would tape them back together and make a new negative, then print them. That's why it's so small. The negative, it's even smaller than the 35. And sometimes I just got crazy idea and I do it. That's all it. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's just like that. I have no idea. I'm looking back. I know that I couldn't do it today. But at the time, it seemed to be like a nice idea to do it. And I like the physical of the tape on top of the negative, and then it print out with the tape. So.
And I feel like that's visible in some of the B movie series, maybe on your website. Like there's some places where I've seen the physical taping and marking and kind of structuring of things in the production of a gelatin silver print, even though I believe the gelatin silver print is a clean object unto itself in the end.
Right, that B movie is basically, I watched that Edward movie, and Tim Burton, I think, directed. And I thought, wow, maybe I can do a B-movie series. And that's, so I start and go, I have some bunch of like negative that lay around, and I just photograph some more Bacon's, Francis Bacon rephotograph, and then put them together. And I do all kind of stuff on that. And the reason I use the tape because I did study some film in San Diego College, and the Super A, when you cut it, you need to do some taping in between scene. So I thought, well, that's the idea to use the taping on. But I like the idea of the Scott tape that have line to it, just like a movie, the old movie have some line to it, scratch. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's how the idea came from. Uh, Sometimes come out of the blue. I don't know. It's hard to say.
There's a comment in the chat from Kent Krug that reads, "It seems that you are quite experimental in your processes. Is that part of the inspiration for your work? And does not knowing exactly what result you might be getting, is that part of the enjoyment of making prints?"
Yes, I like experimenting. Uh, I always try something that I don't know about, and black and white. It's hard for me to not manipulate it and or embellish, just improve it, because I know that technically I'm not that good. um, I just do very basic photography. I know a little bit, but uh, technically I'm not that good. So I try to make a little bit more like experimenting a little bit. I never happy with color photography actually. So I use toning, all kind of tone or watercolor to put on top. Sometimes I fail, but most of the time I figured out how to do it.
Well, the failures are really the secret successes to what we do, is really learning how to pay attention to those failures and to see if there's anything there. And I think that's where it really takes courage to be an artist. I was thinking about a number of different things as you were talking, and one of them was also just surprise myself that the flow works are actually photographs and not photograms. I had always assumed the opposite, and knowing that they were works made with a camera, and that you were using different toning techniques, and that you use things like Ritz dye in your work was just a reminder to me about the delight that I find in your work, which is this, as I mentioned in the introduction, just this really playful approach to photography, which, for so many photographers, myself included, can be such a rigid medium. It can be such a structured, rule-driven kind of medium that it's always refreshing to see people like yourself who are just willing to try something just for the sake of trying it, to see what might happen. And like you said, the failure, might stop you, or it might lead you to, a new place or a new body of work.
Yeah, I think that's you were correct on that. I mean, if I look back to my from very beginning, it seemed like I never take a straight photography. I mean, straight straight photography.
Yeah, right.
I mean, to prepare for this conversation, I do look back of a lot of my photo, and it seemed like none of it is straight. I mean, the gesture is very straight, but I do tone them, so it's probably is not that straight anymore. But yeah, that's how it is there.
So we are coming up on just about an hour of the program, and I want to, in the name of time, I want to go ahead and begin to wrap it up. But I see there's a question from Suda, and it would be nice to hear that. But I also know that Han, you said you'd be happy to stick around afterward if people wanted to ask questions or just chat a little bit less in a more informal setting. And I know Marv is able to manage that as needed. But Suda, why don't you go ahead with your question?
Hi, Han, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. How
Good.
are you?
Thank you for today and sharing your practice. I have several thoughts and then a couple of questions. One, it piggybacks off of Philip Ritterman. I think the digital print that you have in the San Diego Views portfolio, the surface of that print is magnificent with the content of that image. And I think so many of us, when digital came about, we were trying to beat that ink on paper surface. So this is a compliment. I'm commending you on that. That is an exquisite image. Second of all, I want to ask, why do you go back and look at painters when so many photographers have a handle on the history as their impetus? And the second thing is, would you go back and use old images, old film, old anything? Would you redo something? Would you revisit it? Would you redux it? That's two questions, I guess. I'm sorry. Anyway, why do you look at painting, and would you go back and redux anything you've done before? Because, well, you're feeling different, you know? Those are my concerns or questions.
Well, I must say that I did mention that I rarely go out to take photograph. I mean, everything I do within my surrounding, and the idea is there. And so I like painting. I look at painting a lot. So, and I like to try to do my photograph like at least close to that, because they have more texture and that sort of thing, more freedom, I believe, if I can say that. And yes, I did go back from time to time with my old negative. Actually, I do have one series that I plan to print, and I come back to the idea before that I used punch hole to punch the negative, and then retape it with different things. So that the series is almost done. I might need some more images to complete it, but that's the old idea that I never done it before. I mean, I done it once or twice, but it didn't work out at the time. Now I think I know how to do it. And the idea is you have seen some of that idea, like cut out and tape it on top and then sandwich them I think it's on Scene from Backyard or something series. So that's the same idea that I come up with. Yeah, just recently, just maybe 2 years ago, I go back and then rehash them or whatever.
I'm only thinking about Ansel Adams, or was it Weston? Somebody who teaches history. They used to cancel their negatives with a check canceling machine or something. Weston, was it, Mar? Okay. And then now you're putting the holes back in there, like you changed your mind. But I know it's more than that. I'm just thinking about our history. And you know, I'm done printing. I've canceled the negative, you know, but that negative is still alive in your mind. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us. As I mentioned, we will go ahead and conclude the formal portion of the talk, but Marvin, Han, and anybody else who would like to stay on and chat informally, you're welcome to do that and encouraged to. I hope to see many of you at the Paul Sapuya lecture tomorrow afternoon, or our final lecture on Thursday morning, or the final event of the 2021 festival on Saturday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. at the Lafayette Hotel. That will be broadcast on YouTube live as well. So you don't need to be there in person, but if you missed my plug in the beginning, there will be free drinks at the hotel for guests who arrive. So hope to see you then. And thank you for joining tonight.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Thank you.